On today's episode of Phinside The NFL, a report has come out from ESPN that the Miami Dolphins are unlikely to draft a quarterback high in the NFL draft. There may go my Jackson Dart dreams. Also, Tyreek Hill. Does it make sense to trade him to a division rival? On top of that, could a division rival be taking away one of Miami Dolphins' top defensive assistants that I mentioned yesterday could be in line if Weaver leaves to get a crack at the defensive coordinator position in Miami? Man, we got a lot to talk about. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. And let's get into this episode powered by BetUS.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep! He's got it for the touchdown again!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate each and everyone coming through. Shout out to all of you. Smash that like button as you come through. Let's get those likes up. Well over 100 of you in the room. Let's get past 100 likes. All right. Sub. Hey, we are under 100 away from hitting 17K. 20K, I'm going to do a big giveaway, and I'll announce it as we get closer. Shout out to each and every one of you in the chat. Juice, I have actually watched Tacario Davis already. So, yeah, I've had first of all, let's talk about that. You know, we'll talk about the game yesterday, but yeah, I've already watched a little bit of Tacario Davis, bro. Yeah, I like what I've seen. You know, now, is he, obviously he's no Will Johnson or Travis Hunter, you know what I mean? But I like what I've seen from Tacario. You know, I think there's going to be guys like Jahdae Brown and Siobhan Revel, and especially Benjamin Morrison. Me and Neil have joked about it that Miami will be interested in. I like Denzel Burke as well, if you haven't had a chance to watch him. So, you know, but when you talk about Tacario Davis, yeah, he's a good player. I've had a chance to watch a little bit of him. But yeah, so it's actually kind of a I think it's a decent corner class, to be honest with you. You know? So but yeah. But I know Tacario Davis, he's not even coming out. I watched him early, but I know I think he re-entered the portal. I think Tacario Davis is going back. I think he's entering the portal. So I don't think he's coming out. I watched him a while ago too, actually. So yeah, he's I don't even think he's coming out. I'm pretty sure he's re-entering the transfer portal, if I remember correctly. Let's get into, what does Knight say? Knight says, where are you at, Knight? Never believed they would. You and I talked about it. They never make a move for a QB till their old guy is gone. Yeah. We'll talk about it when we get into it. Don't worry. I'll bring that back. We'll discuss that a little bit more when we get into the actual subject. I would like, and I'll get into it deeper, but don't put it past them that they're also playing the game in terms of seeing what the market is out there. If someone wants to trade up, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so, we'll talk about everything and we get into it. I feel my Jackson Dart. I pretty much knew they wouldn't take a quarterback in round 1. I wanted a guy in round 2 or round 3. And I knew Jackson Dart was slipping through my fingers because he's just going to climb through the draft process. So I've been prepared. I've been prepared. Brother, Herbert has missed a ton of time, right? You know that, right? I just want just to make sure. Herbert's missed a ton of time, right? Like their team was picking in the top 5 last year because he got hurt. Remember? Joe Burrow has missed a ton of time too. So that's been a problem with Herbert, Tua, and Burrow. They're all missing time. So, let's relax here before we start talking about who's injured more, okay? Because the 2020 class has had quite their fill of injuries, and it's not just one guy, and it's not just 2 guys. Again, no, that defense brought them more to the Super Bowl. Go back and watch, bro. Burrow couldn't even make his proper hot reads, and I'm a big Burrow guy, but let's keep it $150 as well here. That defense was lights out. Aaron Rodgers, the only Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers ever won was when the Green Bay Packers had a top 10 defense. See, this is it. See, this is where you're at. And no, we should not have drafted Hurts. Hurts is the worst out of all of them. You put Tua on the Eagles, they're winning the NFC. No, it's not even close. You put Herbert on the Eagles, they're winning the NFC. It's not even close. I'll say that for Herbert and Tua. No, Jalen Hurts. See, this is the problem with these people. Hurts did not bring his team to a Super Bowl. That's one of the best rosters built. See, this is the problem. There's 53 men on a roster and a coaching staff. Not every team is carried by their quarterback to the Super Bowl. Mahomes was on the Chiefs last year, and their defense carried them to a Super Bowl. Hurts on the Miami Dolphins would not be a Super Bowl. Hurts can't pass. What are you talking about? Hurts is not a good passer. Howie Roseman brought the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Donovan McNabb, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, Nick Foles, every quarterback that's come through there since the early 2000s, what did they all have in common? For the last 20, 25 years, they've had a top 5 offensive line and a top 10 running game, whether you want to go all the way back to Brian Westbrook to where they're at now with Saquon. So the whole idea that, it's just pure ignorance to give all the credit to one player. Like Jaden Daniels, just because Jaden Daniels is elevating everyone around him, how many times have you seen this done? You got people literally coming out here saying this is the best rookie season they've ever seen, and somehow Tua is the only one being compared to the best rookie season these people have ever seen. And I'm going to be honest with you, like the guy in the chat, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not going to hold back. Jay Bands, you're a fucking idiot. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. You don't know ball. You're a casual fan trying to talk, and casual fans would say the type of stuff you are saying right now. You're not very football smart, bro. You might be smart in real life and with real life things, but football is not one of them, dude. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you know? Peace out. So, Jalen Hurts. We got Jalen Hurts has never thrown for 4,000 yards in his career. Ever. Lamar Jackson just threw for over 4,000 yards for the first time in his career. It took him like 8 or 9 years. It's hilarious. Like, and this isn't just for Tua. Hell, give Herbert. This isn't just for Tua. Give 95% of the quarterbacks in the NFL, put them in the NFC, which is by far the weakest conference. Give them that roster Howie Roseman has built, and they're going to go deep. Like, that's the problem. If Jalen Hurts was that good, they wouldn't have needed to add Saquon Barkley, and A.J. Brown would not be miserable right now. A.J. Brown is absolutely miserable. See, here's the thing. This is what I love, right? Oh, Tua's led the league in passing yards and completion percentage and passer rating because he had Tyreek and of course he had Waddle. Okay, well, he just had Jonnu Smith for 1 year. Jalen Hurts has had a way better offensive line. He's had Dallas Goedert his whole career. He's had A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Why isn't he throwing for 5,000 yards? I'll even do you one better. Because Lawrence is worse than Herbert and Tua. Tua and Herbert, you can make legitimate arguments. Both of them are top 12 guys. Trevor Lawrence, I don't even know if you can make an argument if he's the top 20 guy right now. I bet you the Eagles go farther with Trevor Lawrence than with Jalen Hurts because they can push the ball downfield. Seriously. I'm serious. Like, the way that Eagles roster is built, you know what it's similar to like? Now, the defense is nowhere near as good, but it's similar to the Ravens in the early 2000s. Jamal Lewis, great offensive line, solid, and one of the top defenses in the league. Well, was the top defense in the league, the Ravens. What's the Eagles? Top defense under the league under Fangio. Hands down. Arguably, them and Derrick Henry, best running game in the NFL. Arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. Top 3, top 4. Arguably. You could say Detroit, whatever. Like, bro. It's crazy. And look. Check this out. You want to do me one better? Here's the difference between a team like the Eagles and a team like the Dolphins. Ready for this one? Austin Jackson. The Dolphins draft Austin Jackson in the 2020 draft. Okay? They draft him in the 2020 draft, and they take him 18th overall. All right? We just started to see and reap some of the rewards since McDaniels got here, but he hasn't even been able to stay healthy. Like, let's be honest. He hasn't even been able to stay healthy. Okay? Now, the Eagles. You look at what they do. Look, this is a perfect example. Okay? They took Jordan Mailata in the 7th round, pick 233. Right? He was in the rugby. He was playing rugby before, out in like Australia and like South Wales. He joined the NFL via the team's International Player Pathway program. They selected him in the 7th round. And look at the stud that guy's turned into. Look at that. Look at the stud he's turned into. We're taking a guy in the top 20, and we just start seeing benefits in year 3, year 4, but then he can't stay healthy any of those years. Well, the Eagles are taking guys in round 7 through the International Pathway program, and they're turning them into the top tackles. Well, we use that International Pathway program for Durval, Natos, Quinez, whatever the heck that Brazilian guy's name was, that we moved from defensive line to offensive line to, I don't know where he ended up, flipping burgers at Sonic somewhere. I don't know where he is. Does anyone have any of a hope for Baron Matos? Baron Matos, what's he ever going to be? Nothing. These guys are getting legitimate. Yo, Jordan Mailata just made the All-Pro team in 2024. Second team All-Pro. We draft Austin Jackson. We can't even get him to make a Pro Bowl. He's taking the top 20. Never mind getting an international player. We can't even get these guys to see the field, let alone compete for an All-Pro spot. You know? It's not like we're the creative ones coming up, you know. Nick Sirianni came up with a tush push, not Mike McDaniel. So, you're going to compare us to all these different situations or the quarterback to all these. Like, no, you can't. You just can't. You know, the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Kansas City Chiefs, we're talking about like some of the best front offices in the NFL. It all starts from the top. People want to keep talking about Jaden Daniels. I said it on the show yesterday. Where did it start with Washington's turnaround? It didn't start with them just saying, get rid of the quarterback. It started with getting rid of Dan Snyder. So you can't even compare that situation. You know, I've been talking about drafting Mekhi Becton on this channel for the last couple weeks. Signing Mekhi Becton as a guard option. Right? He can play guard, he can play tackle. Did you see Mekhi Becton in the snow? Did you see that nastiness? So, listen, you can't credit one player for everything. Even with the, yes, is Jaden Daniels elevating people around him? Sure, 110%. But Terry McLaurin, people forget how good this guy was a couple years ago. His game has suffered because of quarterback play in Washington. But Terry McLaurin, when he came in to the league, he hit the ground running and was a stud right out of the gate. Zach Ertz has had a little bit of a career rejuvenation. Former top 5 tight end in the game. Austin Eckler. We talk about Herbert, right? Look at Herbert's success before Harbaugh got there. A lot of his passing success, about 50% of his passing success, came at the line of scrimmage or behind it because he was targeting Austin Eckler. That defense is stepping up. Noah Igbinogheni's playing better in Washington than he ever played in Miami. Like, I talk about the Austin Jackson and Jordan Mailata comparison. Let's talk about Noah Igbinogheni. You want to talk about a Washington Commander? Look at the play they're getting out of Noah Igbinogheni. We had Brian Flores, who's a great defensive mind. Say what you want about the person. Great defensive mind, couldn't get Jack Bo Diddley out of him. Vic Fangio couldn't get Jack Bo Diddley out of him, and look at what he's doing in Philadelphia right now. But Noah Igbinogheni leaves Miami and finds another level. Like, what are we talking about here? Frankie Lavu, go back. He was summoned at the trade deadline show, what was it, last year? It was last year, the year before the trade deadline show. I wanted to trade for Frankie Lavu. I love Frankie Lavu. I wanted Frankie Lavu, and the other linebacker was what's his face? Franklin. Used to be Zaire Franklin. Was, I believe, the trade targets I had. Oh yeah, and I wanted Okereke. Yeah, I wanted Okereke. So, anyways, I'm just saying, like, man, a lot more goes into a deep run than just quarterback. Let's be honest here. I think Bobby Okereke was free agency. Might have been trade, but yeah, I wanted Bobby Okereke too. I love Bobby Okereke. I want those tackle rackers, and not the guys that are racking tackles 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage like Jerome Baker. But yeah, sorry. Hurts is clearly the worst out of that class. Out of that 2020 class. Like, if you're talking about as a passer, it's Burrow, it's Tua. Then it's probably Jordan. Then it's probably Jordan Love. Then it's probably Herbert, and then it's probably Jalen Hurts. But Herbert and Love, you could flip. That's that's take your pick. Take your pick on which one you want. But you're talking about like purely from a passer, then that's probably the order I would go in. I mean, Jordan Love's had way less to work with than Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert came in this league and had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. You ever want a really good exercise when you're bored? Go look at the numbers Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and that receiving core were putting up with Phillip Rivers up until Herbert came in the league. They were putting up numbers. So, anyways. Let's start to get into it. We got a couple things I want to talk about. Let's start off with getting into this. The sponsor of this video is BetUS. Shout out to BetUS. They want to know right now, who do you think is the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft? I think that's Cam Ward. It's pretty easy. I think Shedeur Sanders, he could get jumped, and I'll talk about that, especially when I get into my quarterback big board. But Shedeur Sanders is number 2, Travis Hunter 3, Abdul Carter 4, Will Campbell 5. Those are your props for being the first overall pick of the 2020 NFL draft. Head over to betus.com right now. Use promo code YouTube150. That's YouTube15. I'll get your first free deposits match by 150% up to $2,000. 24/7 customer service. Some of the quickest payouts in the industry. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the channel. It's going to be Cam Ward. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. So, we're going to get into the quarterback talk and everything like that. Before we do, there's something I wanted to talk about, and I saw it was brought up in the chat before I went live. I don't know if you guys saw what Kurt Warner said about cold weather games. We want to talk about Tua in cold weather. Matt Stafford is 1-8 in cold weather games. In snow or cold weather games, Matthew Stafford, who's won a Super Bowl, is 1-8. 1-8. One win in his career in a cold game. Look at what Kurt Warner said on cold weather games. And I want to know in the chat what you think if he makes some valid points.
And I want the best team to win, not the best team in those conditions. And I get it. It's what everybody says. It's football weather. This is what it is. But here's the problem that I have, and it doesn't necessarily apply to these two teams, but being a guy that played in a dome, being a guy that played in Arizona, I have no way to get ready for those conditions. And so you can say all you want about home field advantage, and that's why you play. Well, no, because the Patriots can come to Arizona, and there's no difference other than we have our fans, obviously, but they can play in my weather. I can't play in their weather because I can't get used to it. There's nothing you can do to get used to cold weather in a situation. So to me, I'm just like, I want the best. I want to be able to be my best. I want to play against their best, and I want the best to advance. And so for me, last night, I mean, I played in that weather before. I grew up in Iowa, so I played in all that stuff. You know, and it's just like Bass kicking that ball. I'm sure when he kicked it, he's like, oh, that's money. That's right down the middle. No, shoot. All of a sudden, the wind takes it and it goes to the left, and you say to yourself,
talking about
what
the
was
Buffalo
he supposed
Ravens
to do there?
game.
I mean, it's easy to say, well, aim a little bit further because you know the wind's going to pick. And I don't want that stuff to dictate who wins these games and who ultimately, you know, creates history and wins championships, you know, especially like you get to the playoffs. I just want to see the best team advance in the playoffs. And to me, the best team is the team that has the opportunity to play their best football.
So what do you think in the chat? I mean, he makes some valid points, right? He's basically saying it's a competitive disadvantage for a team that's not used to that conditions. Because, and let's use Miami, for example, or use Tampa or use Jacksonville. You can come to Miami, Tampa, and Jacksonville, and unless it's a torrential downpour, you're pretty much going to get good weather. Or New Orleans. You could go play in New Orleans. You could go play in Arizona. You could go play the Colts. Those are inside. Those are in domes. You can continue to play your game. It's when those dome teams or those good weather teams have to go into conditions they never have to deal with, that they never have to get used to. You know, like, you're not really taking out incentives to get home field advantage, because what he's saying is there's only home field advantage for certain teams. Think about it. Like, and he's right. You know, there's only home field advantage for certain teams. If I play in Arizona and I get home field advantage, what good is that to me? Yeah, my fans are there, but the team coming on the road, they have no advantage. You know, I have no weather advantage. I have no field condition advantage. But if I play in Kansas City or Buffalo, now all of a sudden I've got an advantage, and that's actual home field advantage. Now you're seeing the actual advantage turn on, like, impact the product on the field, not the people in the stands. You know, and he is right from the sense of, here's the thing. You're not going to get the best of both. Like, you are not going to get the best of both teams in those conditions. And Mike Ice makes a very strong point. The college football playoffs do not play in those elements. Like, okay, let's go farther, Mike. They sure as hell make sure the Super Bowl isn't played in those elements, don't they, Mike? Right? They sure as hell make the Super Bowl is not going to be played in those elements, i.e. snow. Now, they'll go for hot weather or dome, but they will make sure they are not. When was the last time you saw the Super Bowl in Green Bay at Lambeau Field? Think about it. So, I'm just saying, it makes sense. Like, the argument makes sense. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm on either one side of the fence or not. I'm just playing devil's advocate. And If didn't they do MetLife back in like and it wasn't good, right? But it was also, when was that MetLife Super Bowl? That was in 2014, right? And the Seahawks won 43-8. So it's been about 11 years. And they haven't gone back to a cold play in over 10 years, over a decade. Remember the Broncos were favored by like 2? And they got just blown out. And that was the first Super Bowl played outdoors in a cold weather city. And it was the first Super Bowl to be played on February 2nd. So that, in 2014, that was the first time they ever took it outdoors in a cold weather city. And the outcome was 43-8. And we've never seen it since. You know? Just saying. And I do kind of agree with what Scott says in the comments. You know? Every stadium should have a retractable roof. Through the regular season, have it open. Through the playoffs, you know, cover it. I agree with that. That would be a fair, you know. And I actually kind of agree with Eminem. I think LA probably wins that game without the snow. Anyways, makes sense, you know. Makes sense. I mean, you can argue whether it's part of the game, but can you really argue that Kurt Warner's points aren't valid? I don't know. Seems pretty valid to me. So, let's get into this. It seems like the Miami Dolphins will not be drafting a quarterback high anytime soon. And by soon, I mean this draft. On this article from Marcel Louis Jacques, you can see here when he starts getting into Greer suggested this was not the ideal plan after the season, saying the Dolphins were in on several top flight quarterbacks, etc., etc. Now, what we want to focus on is right here. Miami owns the number 13th overall pick in this year's draft, but it's unlikely to spend that pick on a quarterback. One season after signing Tagovailoa to a 4-year extension, especially with a weak 2025 class at the position. As Greer alluded to, however, it is possible Miami adds a developmental quarterback later in the draft. There are several veteran options available via free agency, including Jameis Winston, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Please, God, I don't want some of those guys. I'm not even lying when I say that. Please, God, no. I kind of take this as, you know, when he says later in the draft, that's like I get day 3 vibes, like, and this kind of does make sense. I kind of discussed this, right, a couple days ago, and this is really kind of what I said. Listen. There's only a few guys I would take within the first 2 days when you break it all down. And I've said this, you know, obviously Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders is another one. Obviously Jackson Dart. Y'all know where I'm at with my boy Jackson. And then the only other 2 that kind of make sense on the first 2 days are Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe. Right? Like, once you start getting into Dylan Gabriel, right? Kyle McCord, Curtis Rourke, these are guys that be taken on day 3. Now, Dylan Gabriel, you know, I would take him in round 4. Could some team take a flyer on him in round 3? Sure, but I wouldn't touch him till round 4. But when I'm talking about like Curtis Rourke and, these are guys I would be taking in round 4 or round 5 as well. Kyle McCord, Curtis Rourke. I told y'all, I really liked what I saw from Seth Hennigan when I watched the Memphis film, and he ended up entering my top 10 when I finalized my big board. Again, I wouldn't take him till round 5 or beyond. Like, my whole point of saying this is once you get beyond the top 5 guys, everyone else is like a day 3. And they vary. You could go from 4th or 5th all the way to the 7th. I'm not a huge fan of, some of these dudes in this class. I'm just not. But, I think when you get into Kyle McCords, Curtis Rourke, Will Howards, Seth Hennigans, Dylan Gabriels, these are day 3 guys. When you're looking at Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, those are potential day 1 guys. Jalen Milroe could sneak into day 1 too, depending on how he tests in his combine. But I look at I think this class is better than the Kenny Pickett class, 110%. I really do. I do think, that class was hurting. That 2022 class was not that good. I do think this class is a bit better than that 20. I think Cam Ward would have been gone higher than Kenny Pickett. I think Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders maybe too. So I don't know, but it kind of does. Listen, I'm a Jackson Dart guy. I'll tell you right now. I'm going to just lay it out. I'm going to lay it out to you. Jackson Dart is my QB2. My top 3 are Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, then when I finalized it, and then Shedeur Sanders was 3. So I got Jackson Dart as my number 2 guy. I still wouldn't take him or Shedeur at 13 based on our needs and everything. Now, if Tua ended this season concussed and we were dealing with a second concussion and, last season, et cetera, and those rumors were swirling around him, then yes, I would probably be 110% fine with Jackson Dart at 13. Now, if you get me Will Johnson, not going to happen. Mason Graham, not going to happen. Ted McMillan, not going to happen. Maybe Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell or Malachi Starks at 13. And then you trade back up into this into the back half of the first, into the late 20s because Jackson Dart's still on the board and draft Jackson Dart. Will I cry? No. So, but the thing too here is this information too. This could also be being put out that we are we're getting into draft season. For all we know, that could mean they are 110% interested if the right guy falls at 13. And they're just putting it out there that, we got no interest. Or they're putting it out there because they think one of those top 3 guys is still going to be on the board at 13, and they're setting the early seeds to put the idea that if one of those top 3 guys is still on the board, someone will trade up. I will say, Chris Greer said in his exit interview that they will overturn every stone to fix this problem in terms of the quarterback contingency plan, and he did go out of his way to mention including the draft. I've already told y'all I want them to double dip. I want them to sign Kirk Cousins if he's cut, or trade for Geno after his roster bonus is paid, so you only have to pay him $14 million for this year, or trade for Sam Howell. I want you to get a legitimate backup option. I wanted Baker Mayfield 2 years ago. Look where he is now. I want a legitimate veteran backup option, but I want you to spend a day 2 pick on a backup quarterback. And I keep going back to this. Tell me why they shouldn't. Like, tell me why they shouldn't spend a second or third round pick on a quarterback if the right guy's there. Because this is what I would say to you. Again, take yourself out of your fans' shoes and put yourself in the shoes of Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. And you could even advocate putting the 13th pick into this, what I'm about to say. If I go out and select Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or Quinn Ewers at 13 or in round 2, I can, and Tua gets hurt this year, and that guy comes in and looks decent when he's in, I can turn around to Chris Greer and say, hey, as Mike McDaniel, and Chris Greer can turn around and say, hey, Mike got his guy. He took Tua to the peak. Tua stays getting injured, but look at what you saw in that sample size from the kid we drafted on day 1 or day 2. That could further open their employment window if they get that right. Hell, if they trade for Sam Howell and Tua goes down and Sam Howell comes in and tears up the world, that could extend their employment window. So, listen, do I want an offensive tackle that can play guard more? 110%. Do I want defensive tackle help more? 110%. Does that safety room need to be rebuilt and need to be a bigger focus? 110%. Do we need another wide receiver? 110%. Do we need another corner? 110%. Do we need a linebacker to pair with Jordan Brooks? 110%. Do we need another tight end in that room to pair with Jonnu because Smythe is gone and Hill and Tanner Connor are just not it? 110%. But I would get it. I would get it. Now, I do not think Jackson Dart would be on IR behind this offensive line. The guys ran for almost 600 yards in college football before the season. I'm telling you. And actually, we don't have so few draft picks. If you look at the Miami Dolphins in 2025, right? I mean, guys, well, let's talk about it. Let's go here first. Speaking of draft picks, all right? Speaking of draft picks with all of you guys, look at this. This is what the comp situation is looking at right now, the compensatory pick. The Dolphins are aligned to get a 3rd for Robert Hunt, a 4th for Wilkins because of his injury, as well as a 7th for Deshaun Elliott. So add a 3rd, a 4th, and a 7th to the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins, how many picks do the Miami Dolphins have? Well, they'll be picking a 13th overall, 48th overall, and they've got a lot of picks here. I'm not as worried. They're projected to have 10 picks in this NFL draft. So think about this. We've got 10 picks this draft. So, I mean, I'm not as, You got picks to wheel and deal, and you got picks to fill needs. Seriously. So, everyone just flipping out and just, man, we got picks. We have got picks. All right? We can make it happen. And if you want to know exactly where we're picking at, obviously the first pick is going to be at 13. Then we pick at 48. Then we pick at 98, 114, 134, 151, 157, 226, 233, and 253 right now. So we're scheduled to have 6 picks in the first 151 picks. 7 picks in the first 160. 3 of those picks are in the first 100 picks. 13, 48, 98. So, compensatory picks on the way for the Miami Dolphins. That's what it's looking like from a compensatory standpoint. All right. Now, let's get into some Tyreek Hill stuff. Rob Ninkovich, former Patriot, he said some interesting things. I want to get your guys' thoughts. So, Tyreek Hill suggested he wants out of Miami. And you look at right here. Could the Patriots make a big move for him as they did for Randy Moss and Antonio Brown? And this is what Rob said. I wouldn't say that's never going to happen. I think Tyreek Hill, from what Josh McDaniels said, could be a guy that needs a head coach like Mike Vrabel. Somebody that's going to stay on top and that's going to say, I don't care what you've done in the past. You're going to go out and perform, and you're going to be on time, and we're not going to coddle you. I think down in Miami, maybe there was some of that coddling where he wasn't on time. I think if you're going to trade for Tyreek Hill, you have to make sure you have a coach that can stay on top of him and make sure he's doing all the right things. And then when you head over to a latest article, look at an NFL executive prediction, QB moves coming for the Steelers and Raiders. This is from Jeremy Fowler. Look at what it says here. Tyreek Hill traded from the Dolphins to the Patriots. This one is wild, but Hill's displeasure in Miami is out there after his Week 18 comments, and the Patriots hope to be on the brink of contention soon enough under Mike Vrabel. In-division trades are not as rare as they were a decade ago. It's largely about which team offers the best value. The Patriots are desperate. They need a guy, that alpha, that can be friendly for Drake May. And there's a higher chance of the draft picks being higher than with a contender. This is assuming the Patriots can't satisfy that need via Bengals T. Higgins or another free agent. But New England hasn't been a free agent destiny for elite pass catchers in recent years. After Hill produced his first sub-1,000 yard season since 2019, perhaps a package including a day 2 pick would get a trade done. There is just no way that they are going to trade him to the New England Patriots. No way. I mean, they would probably then take Abdul Carter and Ted McMillan, but I mean, they have the 4th overall pick, the 38th pick, the 69th pick, the 77th pick, the 104th pick, and the 144th pick. Would you trade Tyreek Hill to the Patriots? In the chat right now. All right, I'm going to ask you. Let's start a poll. Would you trade Tyreek to the Patriots for the 38th overall pick? There you go. Poll in the chat. Let me know. In the chat, let me know. Would you trade Tyreek to the Patriots for the 38th overall pick? Let me know in the chat. That is a wild one. And if you could trade Tyreek to the Patriots and find a way to get Ted McMillan, I'm not going to say I'm down, but, you know. Now, someone I talked about yesterday that could be gone from the Miami Dolphins, now it seems, is Ryan Crow. I brought Ryan Crow up yesterday when we were discussing potential elevated, promoted guys if Weaver gets the job in New Orleans. Well, the Patriots, they interviewed Ryan Crow today for the defensive coordinator position per source. Crow coached with Mike Vrabel for 6 seasons in Tennessee and is a popular name around the league. So the Miami Dolphins could be watching their defensive coordinator and their best internal option head out the door. Oh, great. I mean, Ryan Crow's our outside linebacker coach. Look at what he did with Chop Robinson. We didn't have Bradley Chubb. We didn't have Jalen Phillips. Shaq Barrett dipped on us, and look at what Ryan Crow did with Chop Robinson. The Miami Dolphins already have vacancies at special teams coordinator and receivers coach. Now you might lose your top defensive assistant and your defensive coordinator. My God, this is getting worse. This could get worse. Holy jeez. This could get even worse. Man, we're going to be promoting a bunch of assistants. Unbelievable. Guys, we're 5 likes away from 100. Smash that like button. Over 300 of you watching right now. Smash that like button. All right? Smash that like button. All right? Let's get over 100 likes. But I'm just not... Oh, my God. I already said Brandon Staley's probably your top option, but now your top internal option might leave too, right behind Weaver. Or might even leave before Weaver. Holy boy. Because I don't know if you guys saw it, but Vrabel already hired his offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels is returning to the New England Patriots. That's who's hiring as I'm not even joking. Josh McDaniels is coming back for a 3rd stint to New England. I'm really worried. Because you know what I'm also worried about? They watched Fassel, the best special teams coordinator, dip from Dallas because of McCarthy firing, and he got hired by the Titans. Jeremy Springer got retained by Vrabel. Coaches might not want to come here because they might view McDaniel and Greer as potential dead men walking or lame ducks, that they could be one and done and get fired. That's why it might only be appealing to assistants. Oh my God. I'm not too bad. Hope you're doing good, Arlene. Hope you're doing well. It's crazy, huh? It's crazy. All right. Speaking of Chop Robinson. Speaking of Chop. Let's give Chop his credit right here. Pro Football Writers of America. They came out with their all-rookie team. The Rookie of the Year, they had obviously Jaden Daniels as Rookie of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, they had Jared Verse. The all-rookie team. Only one Miami Dolphin made it. Look at Zach Frazier makes it. Remember how badly they wanted that guy? Oh, my God. And Cooper DeJean. Oh, Jesus. Chop Robinson. When you look at linebackers, Edgerrin Cooper, Chop Robinson, and Jared Verse all made it. Chop Robinson makes the Pro Football Writers of America all rookie team for 2024. And there were some of y'all that were legitimately calling this guy a bust and comparing him to Charles Harris. How do y'all feel right now? How do y'all feel right now? Tell me right now, how do you feel? Chop, 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 baby. Shout out to Knight. This guy. Eagles fans want Hurts gone. What are we doing? Exactly. Leonard inbound and Joe Barry. Oh, no. People don't remember who Joe Barry is. Joe Barry is the linebackers coach and the run game coordinator. He was the DC in Green Bay. Knight probably has a very valid point. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I would rather Ryan Crow. I'm not even lying to you. Go get me Brandon Staley. Oh, Knight. Why do you got to depress me, Knight? Tell me why you got to depress me, Knight. Is that were you trying to see if you could get me to cry on screen? Knight just wants to crush all my hopes and dreams. This guy. That's a good point, though. I didn't even think about that. That's a great point by Knight. Joe Barry. Oh, my God. You just scared the hell out of me. Oh, man. I'm high on Matthew Golden. I'm actually pretty sure I have a somewhere. I think I know where it is actually, but I have a Matthew Golden on-card auto from Bowman. So yeah, shout out to Matthew Golden. I'm a fan of Matthew Golden. He's definitely a top 10 receiver in this class. He would be just like I haven't finalized. Like the first big board I finalized was the quarterback big board because I want to get it out. I'm going to get it out within the next month. I haven't finalized wide receiver, but I'm pretty close. And, he would be Matthew Golden, obviously Tet McMillan, Vernon Igbuka, Savion Williams for me. And then it would be Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, or Trey Harris for wide receiver 5 for me when I finalize. So, that gives you an idea of my top 7, at least in this draft. So, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Golden for sure. So, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I would not offer Anthony Campanelli. I would offer Staley. And I would try to get in on the bidding process for Robert Saleh. But San Francisco looks like they're going to offer a ton of money, and Shanahan might have more coaching stability and long-term stability in San Francisco with Lynch compared to Greer and McDaniel. But yeah, I don't want Campanelli. I didn't hear great things about Campanelli behind the scenes, right? I was more of a motivational guy. So, in terms of the X's and O's, I didn't hear great things. So, it is what it is. Don't ever let it be what it ain't. Guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Shout out. Reason, do you have Savion as a top 5 wide receiver? Yes, I do. 110%. Yeah, I love Savion for sure. And I think he's got another level to unlock at the next level. Kid's got the tools and the traits, man. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Appreciate each and every one of you for coming through. Will the Miami Dolphins take a quarterback at 13? Doesn't sound like it, but we are in draft season, and that means believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. Appreciate all of you, and as always, fins up all day, every day. We'll see y'all on the next one. And guess what? The next one is end of the season roundtable. Tomorrow night, me, Dougley, Neil, Richmond, the whole cast of characters, we will be here tomorrow night between 7:30. All right? So be on the lookout for the end of the season roundtable. The whole cast of characters will be out tomorrow for you guys around 7:30 Eastern. So be out on the lookout for that, okay? Appreciate all y'all. You already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. We'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy, everyone.